Hey guys, welcome back to the Gears and Tool channel. My name is Adam, your friendly Sasquatch, and today we're going to be reviewing the new SOG Vision XR. Now this knife came out in about mid-2020. I want to say around June, July. And when I saw this, I decided I wanted to pick it up because it's a little bit different than most of the knives in my collection. I don't have a lot of black tactical folders. I have a lot of utility blades, but not a lot of tactical knives and not a lot of black knives. So I thought this one was a pretty nice looking knife, so I went ahead and picked it up. I'm going to say right off the bat, it is kind of hard to film black knives. They're just kind of a hole that light just gets sucked into, and it's hard to really highlight the features so you can clearly see them. So I think I got the lighting pretty good here, but give me some feedback in the comments below if you have any suggestions on how I can do a better job. So again, like I said, this is a tactical folder from SOG, the Vision XR. And what I really liked about this one is it has the black G10 scales, and it has a tanto tip blade, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But let's go ahead and take a look at the overall size and weight real quick. So the close length is 4.7 inches long, 1.5 inches wide, which is from the outside edge of the blade to the back of the flipper. So realistically, it's probably more like a 1.25 inch wide knife, but 1.5 if you include the little flipper tab, and 0.55 inches thick without the pocket clip. So a pretty good sized knife overall. Again, this is a tactical knife. It's kind of going to be your self-defense type rule. So you want something that's kind of beefy and kind of sturdy. And finally, the overall weight on this knife is 4.5 ounces. So again, not a super lightweight knife. This is not going to be a super lightweight EDC carry. It is a very comfortable carry, but this is meant to be a defensive tactical folding knife. So that's kind of the size and weight. When closed, when it's open, it is 8 inches long. Okay, so that's kind of the overall size and weight. Let's see how that compares to a couple of SOG's fixed blade knives. So here we have the SOG Seal Pup 2, which is a 9-inch long knife with a 4.25 inch long blade. The blade on the Vision XR is 3.4 inches. So as far as cutting length goes, it's actually pretty comparable, because if you remember, the SOG Seal Pup has this flat area on the bottom of the knife. So if I can kind of line it up, it's just about as long as the Seal Pup blade as far as cutting length. Another fixed blade is this SOG Ace field knife. I'm just using these field knives because this is what I have, but I kind of wanted to just make the comparison that this is a big tactical folder. I mean, it's going to get the job done. This is comparable to larger type survival knives and stuff like that. So pretty impressed with the size, and then also how it feels when you carry it. Go ahead and get these off the table. Another knife I want to compare this to is the SOG Flash 2. Now this has been a personal favorite of mine. It's an assisted open knife, but it's a little bit different. This is more of what I'd consider a utility blade. But again, very similar to some of SOG's other offerings. Again, this was the SOG Flash 2. If you don't have one, I would highly recommend this knife. All right, so that's how this knife compares to some of SOG's other offerings. Let's go ahead and take a look at the blade. Like I said earlier, the blade is 3.4 inches long, and the blade stock is 1.2 inches thick. So not overly thick, but thick enough to definitely get the job done. Now the steel on this blade was called CTS-XHP. And I did some digging around online, and it's kind of comparable to like an S35 VN, except it has a little bit better edge retention, but not quite the corrosion resistance. And I actually found a really good article kind of comparing this steel to a couple others. I'll put that link in the description below. So extremely high performance cryogenic steel here. I think SOG did a pretty good job picking that steel for this particular application. It deploys really easily. The blade is on bearings, so literally you just pull the lock and the knife closes. You can do it with the flipper tab on the back here, or the thumb stud. Now, something I did like about this knife is it doesn't want to shake open very easily. So I know that some knives that are on bearings, they just kind of, easily slip open, where this one doesn't. You really have to launch it out of there using the flipper tab or the thumb stud. So they did a nice job on the decant. And as you can see, I'm having a really easy job manipulating this knife. You literally just pull the lock back and the blade just folds right closed. So I really like the bearing in here. It is something that I haven't had in a knife before. I've always had knives with phosphor bronze bushings, and I think SOG may have ruined me here, guys. I might have to stick to these knives with bearings in them. And I know they're a little more expensive, but man, look at that. It just folds shut like nothing. I really like the bearing that they have in this knife. So knife blade, pretty cool. Oh yeah, the shape. So the blade shape is a tanto blade, and I have another tanto tip blade I want to show you here real quick. This is the Gerber Mini Griptilian, and it's just because this is one I have. I don't have a lot of tanto tip knives. And look how much steeper this tanto tip is compared to the XR here. The Vision XR has a much shallower tanto tip, which I actually like. I think this one here is just a little too steep. It's like you really got to get up on it if you really want to do like a tip cut, where this knife, you're going to be able to do some nice draw cuts without really having to get up and over. You can kind of just drag the belly of that tanto tip there, or without too much effort, get the tip into what you're working on. So I really do like this tanto tip. It gives some extra reinforcement on the tip of the knife, so it's going to be a nice solid knife, but it doesn't give an overly chiseled looking tip. Like this tanto tip works pretty good as a scraper. I actually use it like this a lot, scraping things off of things I really shouldn't be using my knife on, but that's besides the point. I use the tanto tip kind of like a chisel, where this is more like a piercing tip that you'd use in the defensive role. So I really like that about this particular knife. It's not an overly obtuse tanto tip. Another thing about this tanto tip blade is that you'll see that the knife blade maintains to the thickness of the blade stock almost all the way to the tip of the knife, which I really like. Now this black coating on the blade is titanium nitride coating, and that's a pretty good coating. I've had it on a couple other knives in the past, and it seems to hold up really well. As you can see, I've been using this knife for a couple of weeks already, and there's no real scratches or anything on it. On my other knives, I've never had any flaking or chipping or kind of peeling of the coating. So I do like the titanium nitride. It's a pretty good coating, and this one appears to be applied pretty well. So when the blade's closed up, it's centered up pretty well. You can see in here, you got kind of room on either side of the blade. You can kind of see the light gap there. And then the tip is also centered up pretty well in the base of the handle. So a very good job on the blade implementation. Now looking around the outside here, we have a pocket clip, which is kind of the fold over design. It is not a deep carry pocket clip. However, that is pretty normal for a knife of this size. Things like the Benchmade Freak, the Paramilitary 2 from Spyderco, they all have their pocket clip mounted down a little bit. And I think that's because the knife, to get long enough, you put the pocket clip at the very end, it's going to bottom out on the bottom of the pocket. The pocket clip is reversible, so if you're a lefty or a righty, you can make it work for you. And then the XR lock, which is proprietary to SOG, it's kind of similar to Benchmade's Axis lock, but a little bit different implementation. And the XR lock is accessible from both sides of the knife. So it's, again, a good knife for a left-handed person or a right-handed person. The scales are made of G10, super comfortable. I've been really happy with this knife. And you'll notice it kind of got some finger cutouts here. It's not a real slick body, and it seems like it locks in pretty well for a variety of hand shapes, because if your hand's really big, though, I guess the one thing to look out for, I have size large hand, and you can see how close to the back of the knife it gets. If you have really, really big hand, this nub on the very back might dig into your pinky, but you'd have to have like really big hand and be wearing gloves. So a pretty good size handle for purchase. It has a nice finger groove here, so if you're doing piercing type tasks or like that, you don't really run a risk of slicing your fingers open. So it really kind of catches your hand, which is good for a tactical knife, especially if you're using it in a wet environment or something like that. So I really like the handle on this knife. On the top, we have jimping, which again, I really like having a little jimping on the back of my blade. So for doing finer tasks and stuff like that, you can really get your thumb in there and get nice fine control of the knife. One of the things I noticed when I'm handling this knife, unlike some of the other knives I've tested out, like the Benchmade Super Freak, it just doesn't feel like that big of a knife. Even though it's 4.5 ounces and over 4 inches long, it just feels like it's correctly sized. I don't really know how to explain it. It just doesn't feel like an overly bulky knife. It's thick, but not so thick that it feels like it's pressing into your leg when you carry it. It just really carries well. So that's the SOG Vision XR. And if you're in the market for a tactical folding knife, I would highly recommend you take a look at this. SOG has really stepped up their game. They're putting their knife blades on bearings now. They're using really high-end super steels. I'm really impressed with some of the knives I've seen come out of SOG in the last 18 months or so. If you haven't checked out SOG in a while, I would definitely recommend you check them out. Also, for this knife, I noticed on their website, if you're a first-time customer for them, they're doing a 10% off coupon right now. So I'll put a link in the video description below to where you can find that. But yeah, they're doing 10% off on their website right now, which is pretty cool too. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button below. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you're the first to be notified when I release new videos just like this one. Cheers.